You are listening to the Overthinker's Guide to Joy, episode 63. This is the one where I interview my friend and coaching colleague, Kirsten Parker, and we're going to talk all about how to make decisions. Let's dive in. This is a podcast for overthinkers, overdoers, and overachievers who are tired of feeling overanxious and just want to feel better. I'm your host, certified life coach, Jackie DeCrenis. So, hi and welcome back. Today I have a very special guest, and her name is Kirsten Parker. And Kirsten is one of my coaching colleagues who I met a long time ago in a mastermind, and we have been friends ever since. We share best practices, and sometimes we just get on the phone and gossip. And we talk about coaching, and we talk about life, and we talk about travel, and we are just good friends, and I love hanging out with her, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So Kirsten spent over 10 years working in live theater stage management, which was also the focus of her master's degree, which she attained at Yale. Although she was decisive, productive, and overall successful in her career, much like her clients, she was indecisive and an overthinker when it came to life in general. So because you're listening to this podcast, I relate to the overthinker part of that. And that's one of the things Kirsten and I bond on. Her career pivoted from entertainment to life coaching, and it was kind of rooted in the need to change how she operated. She wanted to feel more like herself, be more in charge of her life, and stop wasting so much energy and time angsting through decisions, big and small. And now she runs the Decision Masters program, a membership for fellow smarty pants high achievers who want to stop overthinking and make faster, easier, aligned decisions. So with that, I want to welcome Kirsten.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm thrilled to be hanging out with you.
Me too. This is so
for having
fun.
me.
So fun. So welcome. Tell us a little bit about the type of coaching you do. I mean, we gave an overview about making decisions and ideal clients being overthinkers, but tell me a little bit more about you and a little bit more about your clients.
I would love to. My clients are people who come from like creative background or academic background or sometimes both. And I know that's your people too. Like I help people see themselves as they are and let that be separate from maybe how they have been and how they want to be. And I help them simplify everything that feels very complicated about all of that so that they can get to those decisions cleaner, faster.
Do you tend to see that it's the creative minds, the writers, directors, actors, artists, musicians who overthink things more because their brains are so creative and there are so many thoughts sort of swirling around their head? Do you find that you're attracting more creative people as clients to you because those are the people having trouble making decisions?
I think it's both. I work with a fascinating array of people. A lot of them are creative and a lot of them are in high pressure, very structured industries like academia and medicine. And I think the thing they all have in common is that they are very ambitious and driven. And I think that manifests in different ways sometimes for people whose profession is also in the arts than as opposed to, something not in the arts. But I think that's the equalizer in my program, at least. It's not necessarily like, I think we're all creative and we all have creative brains, whether we like sell paintings for a living or not. But I think that ambition and that drive is very genuine because at the end of the day, my clients are like me. And I think like you, like we want to get the most we can out of life.
So is it a time management thing for a lot of people?
I think time management is like surface level. I think really the deeper issues arise when you don't feel like you're living up to your potential. And that feels difficult and complicated because you haven't figured out what you really want to do, or you haven't given yourself a chance to really listen to yourself and be honest about it. Because you've been like either in go, go, go mode your whole career, or if you've been in the arts, your brain is telling you like, here's a pile of evidence that your life isn't working. And it never has, and it probably never will.
So it could be personal, it could be professional. It manifests in all different ways for everybody's different in terms of what they struggle with making decisions about.
Yeah. But I think that really like the kind of people that I work with are interested in carving their own path. And they just probably haven't felt as in charge of that in the past as they know they want to. Give me an example,
if you can, without, giving any personal secrets from your clients, but give me an example of what that might look like.
Well, I think that even whether we're talking about someone in academia or medicine or the arts, like you might have a career path available to you that a lot of people around you say is very normal. And that might feel like your only option, or it might feel like the smartest, most responsible way to go. And that can feel very limiting if you're not really sure that's the path you want to go down.
Would the example be somebody on their way to medical school because that's what they've studied and that's what they do and they don't think there's another choice? Or is there a better example?
I usually work with people who are more mid-career.
Okay.
So I have clients who are right now, my clients are deciding like, am I going to stay in the job I'm in or leave it entirely or try to change it? Because they've reached this point where they know, okay, this isn't totally aligned. Or I have clients who I've been working with for a chunk of time. So they've already changed careers. They've left their career that they got all of their degrees for, and they have got all their publications in, and now they're starting a new path. That's one of my most fascinating clients who left academia to pursue a creative career.
And in some ways, you have a very academic background because you have a degree from Yale, an MFA from Yale, and you pursued a career in the arts and then realized, and I'll let you talk about that. So just talk us through that whole process. Where did you go to undergrad? When did you decide to go to graduate school? How did you end up in stage management? All of those things. And then walk us through how you became, all the decisions that to get you to this point of becoming a coach.
Yeah. I studied theater in college because I did theater for fun as a kid. So I was one of those kids who like did theater and sports all the way up until high school when they made you pick because you can't do both. And I was like, well, I'm better at this one than that one. So I'll just do this, or this is more fun. All the theater kids were like my friends and family. So I just hung out with them. That's why I studied it in college. That's literally how I made that decision. It's just like, I've been doing this. It's familiar. I wasn't that good at it, but I was like, I'm just going to keep doing this. Didn't feel super intentional. Didn't feel rooted in anything that I was committed to for my future, which I think is fine because what 18-year-old knows what their future holds. Maybe these days, who knows? But I got into stage management when I realized like after taking acting classes, I was like, oh no, I'm actually bad at this and I don't enjoy it at all. But that person making a spreadsheet over there in the corner who's in charge of everything, can I be them? So did undergrad at UCSB, lived in Santa Barbara, which is the University of California at Santa Barbara, which is a beautiful, beautiful place that I return to frequently now with my husband and our dogs because they have a great dog beach and great wine country. I lived in Santa Barbara for 2 years and worked as a stage manager at their small professional theater. That's like the category of theater it is, SPT. Just like, it was professional. Nobody there was doing theater as a hobby, but it was just a little tiny theater. So I did that for 2 years, like learned everything I could, grew as much as I could. And then it was time to go. And the way I made the decision about grad school was literally an actor who showed up early while I was sweeping and getting ready for rehearsal. I was talking to him about, I need to do something next. And he was like, you should go to Yale. I went to Yale. It was fun. I was like, all right.
And then you spent 10 years as a stage manager.
In total, yeah, before and after grad school. And the whole time in grad school, like where I really started paying attention to the fact that I didn't feel like I was being intentional with my choices was because I complained the whole 3 years in Yale. I met wonderful people. I had great opportunities. My program was, great and flawed, like I think most things in life. But I complained the whole time. I hated winter. Nobody told me. I'm like a little girl from LA who spent 6 years living on the Santa Barbara coast. Nobody told me winter lasts for like 8 months in the Northeast. but it does. New England and I do not get along. And I was working so hard, like 6 days a week scheduled. And then the one day off, we got a week. You got to like make up for all your other work and like maybe do laundry once every quarter. It was hard work. And I didn't have a good reason for doing it other than I'm good at this. This is what I signed up for. And it made it really difficult by the end. The last show I worked on was so challenging because of a lot of factors, most of them personality. And I almost quit. I was like months away from my degree, and my program mates had to talk me into staying because I was like, I don't even know why I'm here.
So you knew you were out of alignment then?
I think I knew I wasn't rooted in any of my decisions. It was the next 2 years were just me getting further and further away from myself and feeling less and less intentional about my life, even though I was objectively like happy and successful. And I know that I hear that from so many people who have been going down a path.
Right. They just stay on the path because it's comfortable.
They stay on the path. And all of a sudden it feels, well, it's too late to change. I've been here. I've invested so much. This is my whole identity. What are people going to think if I changed anything about my life? It'll mean I'm a failure. It's probably too late. All the things.
Right. And prestigious graduate school and money and all the stuff. And it's really hard to like jump ship. So let's fast forward to the last year that you were a professional stage manager and you're thinking, I don't think this is my life's calling, my life dream, and I need to do something else. So then what was that decision to get you to life coaching?
It was working for the most miserable person. And that was the final straw. It didn't matter how fun the job was or how good I could be at it or how much money I could make at it. Because my last show was the most lucrative, it was a Broadway contract. It wasn't a Broadway show, but it was Broadway contract is the most money you can make. And it didn't matter because every day was so miserable. The option of doing the unknown was finally more attractive than staying in the familiar. And that's like a shitty place to have to get to, but that's what it did it. And, but luckily by then I had had one experience with a life coach.
Okay.
I'd had 1 5-week pay what you can program that totally changed my life. That's where I learned like our emotions are created and driven by our thoughts. Like a dozen years of therapy never taught me that. Had to learn it in my 30s. So if you're just finding out too, no shame. But I ended the show, booked a session with that life coach and was like, all right, this is going to take a long time to figure out. Like, I don't have any idea who I am, what I'm good at, or what I want to do. And I talked to her for like an hour and she was like, yeah, I think you just want to be a life coach. I was like, it couldn't possibly be that easy. And then within 2 weeks, she had referred me to someone who was creating a mastermind, was putting people together, women, entrepreneurs, coaches. She was going to teach me how to coach. She was like, this program's starting. It's $10,000. There's no degree. It's 6 months. You'll start your new career. And I was like, I did it.
The audience can't see you because we're not on video, but you literally just pulled up your turtleneck over your face and was like, ah, she was doing this like silent scream, which was hilarious. But yeah, you jumped into the deep end. You said, I'm not going to be this thing that defines me for the last 10 years, and I'm going to do something else. And I'm going to go learn this process and see if it's for me.
Yeah.
And it was.
Well, and the thing is, by then I had already done something for over 10 years, right? Like, and it didn't end up being the thing I wanted to do forever. But that doesn't mean it was wasted time.
Nothing's ever wasted.
Yeah. And looking at this opportunity, it felt like a really big decision and a really big investment. But I let myself, I was not an expert at decision making back then, but I let myself, I think I let myself imagine the stakes being a little lower. Like I could just decide to go this direction, to start carving my path in this way. And I don't need to know where it's going to go. Like it could work out though, and I could like it.
So that's an interesting question. Do you have sort of a thought checklist, if you will, for people who are afraid to make a decision? Is there a pattern that you're like, here's the thing, when you're making a decision, it's super scary. There's always the fear that you could fail or be judged or make the wrong choice, God forbid. And I deal with a lot of overthinkers and perfectionists. That tends to be my sweet spot. So I don't I don't coach just creative people. I coach all walks of life, but I do coach a lot of creative people. And perfectionism is a big theme that comes up with creative people. People either not wanting to start a project or finish a project because fear of judgment or getting stuck.
Yeah.
But it's all connected. Perfectionism is connected to overthinking, which is connected to decision making. It's all like one kind of umbrella issue. So what is sort of your, if you will, and I don't mean for you to button it down to 3 simple thoughts, but like what are kind of your go-to thoughts about making a decision?
Yeah. I can't wait to talk about them. I think the perfectionism note, just really quickly, it's so true. It's so pervasive. It mucks up decisions so often. And I think that it really comes from that genuine desire for us to fulfill our potential, not even just our potential for like how successful we can be, but our potential to experience the fullness of life. I really think that because when I catch myself getting a little perfection-y, it's because I want to be seen as good and I want this thing to work and I want to feel as good as I can and to be as good as I can. And then like, I get it. So I want to validate all of the perfectionists out there. And that's where the compassion comes in so handy. Okay. But to answer your actual question, yes, in a nutshell, what I teach people to do is start with their vision, goals, and values. Because it's something that I never, ever felt until my mid 30s was like any kind of deep connection to myself. I knew what I was good at. I knew how I saw myself through other people's eyes, but I didn't feel like I had an open line of communication with myself. Like I could hear myself clearly with what's my vision for who I want to be and letting the need for that to like have a job title attached to it or, anything that will end up being true, any accurate predictions, just like the vision of like, how do you want to feel? Who do you want to be? How is you 6 months from now slightly different than you now? And like, can we start moving in that direction intentionally?
Let me stop you there for a second.
Yeah.
Before you get to the second one, because it's a super important one to talk about. So we do a lot of this work as coaches. We ask people to imagine their future self, whether it's a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. It really depends on what the agenda is. But usually 6 months is kind of the sweet spot because that's not too far in the future, but a lot could get done in 6 months. So we generally say, like, imagine yourself 6 months in the future. Yeah. There are a lot of people that in and of itself is too daunting.
Yeah.
They can't even imagine 6 months from now because either they're so stuck in their story or their path. So they can't imagine anything being different. Or they wouldn't even know what to dream of because they haven't allowed themselves to dream because they are so broken. So it's like one end of the spectrum or the other. I was such a doer as a corporate executive, as a former television executive, that the only time I ever saw 6 months ahead was like a promotion or a bigger office or more shows on the air. It was so literal. It was so like almost like working in a factory. Like I'll increase productivity by 10%, or I'll be vice president, or I'll be executive vice president, and it had like very little to do with the vision of my being. Like, how do I want to feel?
Yeah.
What if anything was possible? I couldn't even think beyond that. And then I have met other people where like the rug has been pulled out from them. They've lost their relationship. They've lost their job. They've lost maybe a parent or a child, God forbid. And everything is so bleak, they can't imagine feeling even normal again. So they can't put themselves in. So anyway, that's the two ends of the spectrum, is like the overdoer who's just like next thing, next achievement, or the person who's literally scorched earth.
Just like day to day, survival mode.
Do you run across that with your clients in terms of setting the vision 6 months from now? Do you ever find people going, I have no idea?
Yeah,
That's too hard.
it's one of the, I literally created a whole separate workshop called the Clarity Workshop. So people would have like a way to work through this because it is the hardest thing.
Mhm.
I also tell people to start with the values because our values are usually less confusing and complicated than like the future and the goals.
So let's go to that when you're ready. Yeah.
And I also always tell people, like, if you have a question, you do have a goal. I'm usually of the mind before I was usually of the mind before I retrained my thinking that I can't set a goal until I know what I want. I can't have a vision until I know exactly like what my plan is. But wanting a plan is a goal. And like, that's why I encourage people to just think about the subtle differences between, well, 6 months from now, maybe you are like more confident. Maybe you're nicer to yourself. Maybe you just feel like you have enough time. That's enough. Like, that's fine. That's a great vision statement. We're done. We don't have to make it more complicated. Because I think it's easy to put the pressure on ourselves to like need to know all of the life's answers. And that's so scary and sounds like impossible that it's just easier to just keep the status quo going. Go back to normal life. We'll change things later. And that's how we lose years.
Right. Okay. So that's really, thank you for taking a pause on the vision piece, because I didn't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I do know that that can be a barrier to entry for so many people. They're like, yeah, I don't have it, so I can't do this work. Okay. Let's move on to the second one.
And really all that comes down to vision, goals, and values is a like fancy way of saying start from what you want. Like, so many people skip over entirely when they have a decision they're making. They skip over what they want and they go immediately to, well, what are all the options that I could do? What should I do? What is my boss going to get mad at? What would my mentor advise? Like, what are people going to get judged? How's my family going to react? They do not consider, what do I genuinely want? And if they do, they don't prioritize it. So that's my number one. Just start. We don't have to end up deciding exactly what we want, but we have to answer that question ideally first.
Got it.
And then the second thing you do is anticipate fears and questions. Fears and questions
on your vision or on your goals
in the decision-making process in like the 1, 2, 3.
I just wanted, I was just trying to get through the 3 categories. So vision, goals, and values. Okay.
Oh, vision, goals, and values. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Did we do it?
No, I want to go to goals.
Okay. Yeah.
So do you have people do 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals? What is your recommendation when people are doing this exercise?
There's no wrong answer. Less is more. Because I work with people who are pursuing professional and personal goals. So it's a interesting arena to set goals because it's not just thinking, okay, inside my business, these are my exact goals of like, what I want to accomplish this quarter. It's really, what do I want to accomplish this quarter? What do I want to experience in my life? What do I want to get done with like the house renovation? It's like anything that is going to take your resources, we want named because that's a decision filter. Like, you give your resources away all day long, your time, your energy, your attention, your money. And then by the end of a month, by the end of 3 months, we want to see, has anything that matters to you progressed? Has anything that matters to you been tended to? And that doesn't happen if you haven't named what matters to you.
Got it.
Officially. Right. So that's why I like working with people in this kind of general, let's talk about all the things way, because I've worked with clients who their primary goal that they're working hard at every single day isn't their relationship with their mom. But a really important goal for them is, I want to have a more open, honest relationship with my mom. Like, it's important that 3 months from now, our relationship looks different. So we have to put that on paper so it gets any airtime, any of the resources.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. 100%. Okay. So that's the goal category. Now we're in values. Talk about that.
Values.
Understanding really what people's being in touch with their values, their specific values.
Your core values right now. It's always really good news to people that values are seasonal and they don't have to be like,
oh, I love that. Wait, I want to sit in that for a second.
Yeah.
Values are seasonal.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Depending on the circumstance, that may be more important. Something may be more important at a different time than it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You really want your core values to be helpful information to you. And again, it's another way for you to feel more and more connected to yourself. But for instance, for me, there was a time when love, not on my top 5 core values. Didn't need it, wasn't interested. I was like building my business, financial security. And I think the way I talked about it was like mastery in what I did. Like I really just wanted to get really good at coaching and I wanted to learn how to make money so that I could actually have a viable business. And those were valuable to me in a way that influenced my decisions. And as soon as I got wind of this internal season change where I was like, I think finding my life partner might be important to me right now. My core values like shifted. And it doesn't mean this is no longer important because this is, but it's like, oh, I get to pay attention to things and make decisions considering different things. That makes sense?
Yeah. And you have a great love story on that because the pandemic hit, which everybody was in lockdown and feeling very isolated. And a lot of people thought they couldn't make a living during the pandemic. A lot of people thought they couldn't connect to other people during the pandemic. A lot of people thought they couldn't date during the pandemic. And you miraculously, and I will let you tell your version, because it's your story to tell, what happened to you during the pandemic.
Bagged me a husband.
Crazy.
And I made the most money I've ever made. Like it was a win-win year, not to diminish the year, but yeah, it was because I was getting coaching. It was because I was holding myself accountable to paying attention to what mattered to me. And I was communicating with myself and being honest. Like, I think that finding my life partner is actually quite important to me. And I don't see it happening on its own. I feel like I'm going to have to do some stuff. And my coach was like, I agree.
People will want to know, like, finding a partner is difficult at any time. And it's particularly difficult when you're in lockdown and a pandemic and all the things and starting a new career. So just tell the audience just really quickly, like, how did you meet and what was the romance, and talk about like how fast you actually got engaged and married and eloped and all the things.
Got on Hinge on a Tuesday, dating app. Needed a lot of coaching. Felt really bad about it. Felt really weird. Got coaching. Got encouraged to like validate those feelings. Keep going anyway. Got overwhelmed. Then I got more coaching on how to create some decision filters about like, who am I going to say yes to? What am I going to like? What am I doing here? Connected with him on Friday. Chatted. Set up a Zoom date for Friday night. Zoom dated Friday night. Got along. Set up an in-person date for Sunday. Met on Sunday. Took the dogs to the Americana. It's this little like shopping mall in Glendale near where we live now. We're official in a couple by Wednesday and deleted the app. So I think it took 7 to 8 days total from getting on the app to like, okay, I'm in a relationship now. Great.
Unbelievable. And fast forward to what happened.
And then we got married 1 year later to the day that we met. Went down to the courthouse, the only open one, because it was the pandemic. So we had to drive to Orange County. And a couple months later, we had a trip with vacation already planned for Bora Bora that we turned into our own private wedding. It was great.
And honeymoon.
And honeymoon. Yeah.
Amazing. With like the most gorgeous pictures ever. And just so romantic. So anyway, but again, you decided.
Yeah. Fast, clear decisions.
Yeah. You decided to figure out a social media app. You decided to have a safe date on Zoom. You decided to go out in the world and meet outside. You decided to be a couple because probably you needed to be either in or out, right? Because of the pandemic, you're not going to be like,
it was like
dating.
A pod situation.
It was a pod situation. Either I like you and I want to spend time with you, or I don't, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
And then
it was the very beginning. Like it was things weren't fully, it was April 26th we met.
The common theme here is deciding that you were worth it, deciding that you were open to it, deciding that you could, in spite of the circumstances of pandemic and limitations, you could maybe meet somebody. Kismet or chemistry or serendipity of you both finding each other. That's just being open to it.
The universe being on our side. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
But I think it's just because I was so clear on what I wanted and like was living my life in a new way where that came first. And it sounds very scarily selfish to a lot of my clients who have not lived their lives in that way before, but I get it. I've been there. That's why it's my number one step in making decisions easier. It's like, you have to start with what you want, because otherwise we'll just lose decades.
And to a greater or lesser degree, that is also what happened in your career. You're like, yeah, the career that I got the fancy MFA from isn't working for me. And great education, great contacts, great, ego boost, all the things.
Yeah, great chapter.
Great chapter. And I need to find something that feels more in alignment with what I want and need and am capable of. And that led you to your coaching career, which also has served you very, very well, because you're great at it and you love it and you've helped tons of people.
And I'm still changing it based on what I find out I want. Like, it's nice to feel so less attached to things needing to be perfect from the get-go. Like, it's just nice to know, there's no such thing. We just get to stay in charge and make thoughtful decisions. We're not like throwing decisions around willy-nilly.
Yeah.
But rooted in what you want, those vision, goals, values, man.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for telling us your story. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your personal story, your professional story, and basically what you do. How can our listeners get in touch with you if they want help coaching and making decisions?
Yum, would love. You can follow me on Instagram at KP Coaching, Kirsten Parker, or my initials, KP Coaching. And KirstenParker.com has the next free thing that I'm doing. I always have some fun free thing going on right now. Right now, it's the Decide-a-thon, which is going to be so great. So check for what I'm doing next there. And then you can buy the Clarity Workshop for instant access if you want to work through vision, goals, and values. Super useful. And then the Decision Masters program, you can hop in the membership if you want to really go for the coaching. So much fun.
I love it. So I'll have that in the show notes so that in case they didn't have a pen and paper when they were listening, they can look it up. And thank you. And I just wish you all the best. And you've got a big trip planned for the holidays. So I wish you a wonderful trip to Italy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. We will talk all about it when I'm back.
So fun. So fun. All right. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Overthinker's Guide to Joy. If you're enjoying these episodes, please subscribe or follow this podcast so you can always be in the know when the next episode drops. If you would like to learn more about working with me as a coach, you can connect with me through my website at jackiedecrenis.com. That's JACKIEDECRINIS.com.